Let me ask you something. And I need you to answer honestly. Have you ever worked harder than everyone around you, and still watched someone else get the reward? Have you ever sat in a meeting, knowing the answer, knowing you deserved to speak, and said nothing? Have you ever gone home at the end of the day, exhausted, undervalued, invisible, and thought to yourself, "What am I doing wrong?" If you have, this is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. And today, we're going to break it. Chapter 1: The problem nobody talks about. There is a person I want you to meet. You might already know them. In fact, you might be them. They wake up early. They stay late. They do the work nobody asks them to do, because they believe, deeply, that results speak for themselves. That the right people will eventually notice. That patience is a virtue. That good things come to those who wait. They are dependable, loyal, skilled. And they are exhausted. Not just physically. Emotionally exhausted. Quietly frustrated. Carrying a weight they can't quite name, the weight of effort that has gone unseen, of expectations that have gone unspoken, of a life that somehow keeps happening around them instead of for them. They watch a colleague, less experienced, honestly less capable, walk into the boss's office and come out with a promotion. They see a friend who seems no more qualified, no more deserving, somehow always landing the opportunities, the connections, the breaks. And they wonder. They always wonder. Why not me? Here is the answer nobody gave them. And it is uncomfortable. So I need you to stay with me. The reason is not their talent. It is not their worth. It is not that the universe has decided to skip them. The reason, the single, quiet, devastating reason, is that they never asked. They hoped. They waited. They hinted. They worked harder, believing the volume of their effort would eventually speak loudly enough. But it didn't. Because effort is silent. And silence is invisible. Think about the last time you wanted something, really wanted something, and didn't ask for it. Maybe it was a raise. You'd been doing the work of two people. You knew your numbers. You knew your value. But you told yourself, they should already know. If they don't see it by now, what's the point? Maybe it was in a relationship. You needed support. You needed to be heard. But you swallowed it. You told yourself you didn't want to be a burden. That strong people handle things on their own. Maybe it was an opportunity. A project you wanted. A role that excited you. And you stayed quiet because you weren't sure you'd be chosen, and being rejected felt worse than never trying. So you said nothing. And life moved on without you. This is not a small thing. This is not a minor habit. This is the single most consistent pattern in the lives of people who feel stuck. Not laziness. Not lack of talent. Not bad luck. Silence. Before we go deeper, if you've ever felt this way, if you've ever watched life pass you by while you waited your turn, I want you to do one thing right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this entire series is built for you. Every single episode is going to hand you something that changes how you move through the world. You don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's continue. Chapter 2: The Lie You Were Taught. Let me tell you about the lie. Not the lie someone told you maliciously. The lie that was woven into your upbringing so quietly, so naturally, that it never felt like a lie at all. It felt like wisdom. It sounded like this. Good things come to those who wait. Don't be greedy. Be patient. Your time will come. Don't make a fuss. People will think you're arrogant. Just keep your head down and do the work. Sound familiar? These weren't bad intentions. The people who said these things loved you. They were trying to protect you from disappointment, from rejection, from the embarrassment of reaching for something and missing. But in trying to protect you from failure, they accidentally taught you to fear asking. And fear of asking is one of the most expensive habits a human being can carry. Here is what actually happens in the real world. In the real world, the person who gets the promotion is often not the most talented person in the room. They are the person who had a conversation with their manager about their goals. Who said, clearly, specifically, without apology, I want to grow into this role. Here's what I've done. Here's what I'm working toward. What would it take? In the real world, the person whose needs get met in a relationship is often not the person with the most obvious needs. They are the person who learned to say, calmly and directly, I need support right now. Here is what would help me. In the real world, the entrepreneur who gets the investor is not always the one with the best idea. It is the one who picks up the phone. Who walks into the room. Who asks, again and again and again, until someone says yes. The world does not reward silence. The world rewards communication. And most of us were never taught this. Not really. There is a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It was discovered by a psychologist named Martin Seligman in the 1960s, through a study that was as fascinating as it was heartbreaking. Without going into all the details, the core finding was this: when living beings repeatedly experience situations where their actions make no difference, they eventually stop acting altogether. Even when circumstances change. Even when their actions could make a difference. They have learned, at a deep, almost cellular level, that trying is pointless. Now I am not saying you are helpless. You are not. But I am asking you to consider something. How many times did you ask for something as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and get shut down? How many times did you reach for something and get told no, or be made to feel embarrassed for wanting it? How many times did you watch the people around you get praised for not needing anything, for being independent, for not making demands? At some point, without even realizing it, your brain made a calculation. Asking is dangerous. Silence is safe. And you carried that calculation, that invisible equation, into every job, every relationship, every opportunity that came after. That equation is costing you your life. Chapter 3: The Architecture of Silence. Why you don't ask, and what it's really costing you. Let's get specific. Because this is where most conversations stay vague, and vague conversations don't change lives. There are 4 core reasons people don't ask. And I want you to recognize yourself in at least one of them. The first reason: fear of rejection. This one is the most obvious, and the most powerful. The moment you decide to ask for something, a raise, a date, a favor, an opportunity, your brain immediately runs a simulation. It pictures the worst outcome. It pictures the look on their face. The slight pause. The gentle but firm, I don't think that's possible right now. And that image, that imagined image, feels so real, so painful, that you decide it's not worth the risk. But here is what you need to understand about rejection. Rejection is not a verdict on your worth. Rejection is data. Think about it this way. Imagine you are a scientist. You form a hypothesis. You run an experiment. The experiment fails. Does that make you a bad scientist? Of course not. It makes you a scientist who now has more information than they had before. Every person you have ever admired, every leader, every creator, every person who built something meaningful, has a rejection story. Multiple rejection stories. They have been told no by people who later wished they had said yes. They have been overlooked by rooms that later stood up to applaud them. The difference between them and the person still waiting is not talent. It is their relationship with the word no. They made peace with it. They stopped treating it as a final answer and started treating it as a conversation starter. Not right now. What would it take to get there? I understand. Is there someone else who might be better positioned to help? I appreciate your honesty. Can we revisit this in 3 months? No is not the end. No is often the beginning of a negotiation you didn't know you were allowed to have. The second reason, fear of appearing needy. This one runs deep, especially for high achievers. There is a specific type of person who prides themselves on self-sufficiency, who has built their identity around not needing help, who would rather struggle in silence than risk looking weak, dependent, or demanding. If this is you, I want to say something with care. There is a difference between being a burden and having needs. Every human being has needs. That is not a character flaw. That is biology. That is the fundamental design of the species. We are wired for connection, collaboration, support. The person who never asks for anything doesn't become more impressive. They become more isolated, more resentful, more quietly sad. And here is the irony: the people around you, the good ones, want to help you. They want to show up for you. But they can't show up for needs they don't know exist. When you hide your needs to protect your image, you don't just deprive yourself. You deprive the people who love you of the chance to actually love you. The third reason, assuming people already know. This one is subtle and incredibly common. It sounds like this: if my boss cared, they'd notice. If my partner loved me, they'd just know what I need. If they wanted to help, they'd offer. And underneath that assumption is a belief that is both understandable and deeply unfair, unfair to you and to the people around you. The belief that love, respect, and awareness should be mind-reading. Here is the truth. People are busy. People are distracted. People are navigating their own fears, their own pressures, their own blind spots. Your boss is not watching you the way you think they are. They have 40 other things demanding their attention. Your colleague who seems to have everything figured out is not manipulating the system, they are simply communicating clearly and often. Silence doesn't just go unheard. Silence gets misinterpreted. When you don't ask for a promotion, your manager doesn't think, "They're probably happy where they are, I shouldn't disturb that." Your manager thinks, "They haven't said anything. They must be satisfied." When you don't tell your partner what you need, they don't think, "They're struggling and I should check in more." They think, "Everything seems fine." Your silence creates a story in other people's minds. And you have no control over that story. The only way to control the narrative of your own life is to speak it clearly. The fourth reason, believing you don't deserve it yet. This one is the quietest, the deepest, and the most damaging. It doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like reason. It sounds like humility. I'll ask when I'm more qualified. I'll speak up when I have more experience. I'll raise my hand when I'm sure I'm ready. But ready is not a destination you arrive at. Ready is a decision you make. And waiting until you feel worthy to ask is like waiting to get in the water until you already know how to swim. The confidence to ask does not come before the ask. It comes from the asking. Every time you ask, even when your voice shakes, you build a small deposit of courage. And those deposits compound. They accumulate into a version of you that doesn't wait for permission. That doesn't shrink in rooms where they belong. That knows, at a level deeper than logic, that their voice matters and their needs deserve a voice. But that version of you doesn't appear from waiting. It appears from action. Let me give you a number. It's a small number. But I want you to sit with it. According to research on workplace dynamics, the average salary gap between employees who negotiate and those who don't, over a 40-year career, can exceed $500,000. $500,000. Not because one person was more talented. Not because one person worked harder. Because one person asked. They had one uncomfortable conversation. One moment of vulnerability. One request that took 30 seconds of courage, and it compounded, year after year, into a life that looked completely different. The cost of not asking is not just emotional. It is financial. It is relational. It is existential. It shows up in the life you're living versus the life you know, somewhere, quietly, you're capable of living. Chapter 4, How to Ask. All right. We've sat in the truth long enough. Now let's build something. Because this is not a eulogy for the life you didn't live. This is a blueprint for the one you're about to build. Asking is a skill. I want you to hear that fully. It is not a personality trait you either have or don't have. It is not reserved for the bold, the extroverted, the privileged, the fearless. It is a skill. Which means it can be learned. Which means it can be practiced. Which means it can get better every single time you use it. Here is how. Step 1. Start smaller than you think you should. Most people imagine that learning to ask means suddenly becoming someone who negotiates aggressively, speaks up in every meeting, and never backs down. That's not where you start. You start here. Ask for the window seat on a flight. Ask a colleague for feedback on your work. Ask your friend what they'd recommend at a restaurant you've never been to. These are micro-asks. They feel almost too small to matter. But they matter because they are retraining your nervous system. They are teaching your body that asking is survivable. That the world doesn't end. That most people, most of the time, respond with warmth, not rejection. You build the muscle before you lift the heavy weight. Step 2. Be specific. This is the single biggest technical mistake people make when they finally do ask for something. They are vague. I'd love more opportunities. I just want to feel more valued. It would be nice to grow in this role. These are not asks. These are wishes. And wishes don't get granted. Specific requests do. Compare these. Vague, I feel like I could be doing more. Specific, I'd like to take on the client presentation starting next quarter. I've been preparing for this, and I believe I'm ready. Can we talk about what that would look like? Vague, I need more support. Specific, I'm feeling overwhelmed on Tuesday evenings. Could you take dinner duty twice a week? It would make a real difference. Vague, I want to earn more. Specific, based on my contributions this year, the 3 accounts I brought in, the system I built that saved the team 12 hours a week, I'd like to discuss bringing my salary to X. Can we schedule time to talk through this? Do you feel the difference? Specific asks give people something to actually respond to. They remove ambiguity. They signal that you've thought about this seriously, that you respect the other person's time, and that you know your own value. Specific asks get answered. Vague wishes get ignored. Step 3. Separate the ask from the outcome. This is a mindset shift that changes everything. Most people don't ask because they're too attached to the answer. They need it to be yes. And because they need it to be yes, they can't risk hearing no. So they don't ask at all. Here is the reframe. Your job, your only job, is to ask clearly and honestly. The outcome is not yours to control. When you detach from the outcome, something remarkable happens. The ask becomes lighter. Your voice steadies. The desperation leaves your energy. And paradoxically, you become more likely to get a yes, because people can sense when you're asking from a place of strength rather than need. You are not begging. You are communicating. There is a world of difference between the two. Step 4. Use the scripts. I want to give you language. Because sometimes the barrier to asking isn't the fear, it's not knowing what words to use. Here are 3 scripts you can adapt and use this week. For asking for a raise or promotion. I'd love to schedule some time to talk about my growth here. Over the past X months, I've specific achievement. I'm committed to this team long term, and I want to make sure we're aligned on where I'm headed. Would you be open to having that conversation this week? For asking for support in a relationship. I want to share something with you, not to complain, but because I trust you and I want us to be closer. I've been feeling, lately, and what would help me most is, specific action. I'm not asking you to fix everything, I just need, specific thing. Is that something you can do? For asking for an opportunity, a referral, a collaboration, a connection. I've been following your work for a while, and I genuinely admire, specific thing. I'm working toward, specific goal, and I believe a conversation with you could be meaningful. I'd love to connect for even 15 minutes if you're open to it. I respect your time completely, and if now isn't the right moment, I understand. Notice what all 3 have in common. They are honest. They are specific. They acknowledge the other person. They don't grovel, and they don't demand. They invite. That is the energy of a powerful ask. Not desperation. Invitation. Step 5. Teach people how to treat you. This is the deeper principle underneath all of it. Every time you ask for what you need, clearly and without apology, you are doing something that goes beyond the ask itself. You are establishing your standards. You are communicating, not just in words but in energy and in action, that you are someone who knows their worth. Someone who doesn't accept invisibility as a default. Someone who believes their needs, their goals, and their voice matter. And here is the beautiful thing about that. People rise to meet the standard you set. Not always. Not immediately. But over time, the way you carry yourself, the way you communicate, the expectations you express, the limits you establish, shapes how people perceive you and how they treat you. When you shrink, people accommodate the smaller version of you. When you expand, when you take up the space you actually deserve, people adjust. You are not at the mercy of how others choose to see you. You are always an active participant in writing that story. Chapter 5. 3 truths that will change how you see this. I want to leave you with 3 truths. Not advice. Not instructions. Just truths, the kind that, once you see them, you can never unsee. Truth 1. The people you admire most are asking constantly. I mean this literally. The mentor who seems to effortlessly attract opportunity, they are asking for introductions, for feedback, for partnerships, for trust. Constantly. The leader who always seems to know the right direction, they are asking their team, their advisors, their instincts. Relentlessly. The artist whose work reaches millions, they asked someone to share it. They asked someone to publish it. They asked someone to believe in it, before they fully believed in it themselves. What looks like magnetic, effortless success from the outside is almost always a quiet, consistent practice of asking on the inside. You are not watching people who need less than you. You are watching people who ask more. Truth 2. The version of you that doesn't ask is not humble, it's hiding. I say this with genuine love, because this truth helped me more than almost anything else. We tell ourselves that staying quiet is modesty. That not asking for more is grace. That waiting our turn is integrity. Sometimes that's true. But often, more often than we'd like to admit, silence isn't wisdom. It's fear wearing the costume of virtue. The ask you keep avoiding isn't humble. It's self-abandonment dressed up as patience. Your dreams, your needs, your goals, they are not too much. They are not arrogant. They are not selfish. They are yours. And they deserve a voice. Truth 3. Every no you haven't heard yet is. Every no you haven't heard yet is a yes you haven't reached. Most people interpret silence, their own silence, the silence of waiting, as safety. But silence doesn't protect you from rejection. It just means you never move close enough to find the yes that's waiting on the other side of all the no's. The person who asks 10 times and hears no 9 times is infinitely closer to what they want than the person who asked 0 times and protected themselves perfectly from rejection. Because one yes, just one, can change the entire trajectory of a career, a relationship, a life. And you cannot find it from the sidelines. You have to get into the game. So here we are. We started with a question: why do people who try hard still end up with less than they deserve? And now you know the answer. It is not effort they lack. It is not talent. It is not timing or luck or who they know. It is the ask. The conversation they didn't have. The hand they didn't raise. The door they didn't knock on. The need they didn't voice. The version of themselves they kept waiting to become before they decided they were allowed to want more. That ends today. Not because I said something magical. But because you already knew this, somewhere. You felt it in that first moment when the hook of this video called you out, when you recognized yourself in the invisible worker, in the person who hoped without asking, who waited without speaking. You recognized yourself because this is your pattern. And you are already ready to break it. Here is your one action before you close this. One ask. This week. Not the biggest ask of your life. Not the most terrifying conversation. Just one ask that is real, and specific, and a little bit outside your comfort zone. Ask for the feedback. Ask for the meeting. Ask for the raise. Ask for the help. Ask for more time, more space, more clarity, more connection. Ask for one thing you have been quietly wanting and silently refusing to request. And notice what happens. Not just the outcome, though I think you'll surprise yourself. Notice how it feels to finally use your voice. To stop waiting for permission. To step into the room that has been waiting for you all along. If this hits something real in you, if there's someone in your life who needs to hear this right now, share this video with them. Don't just send the link. Tell them why. Because asking them to watch it, telling them it reminded you of them, that itself is an act of connection. That's you choosing to show up. And in the next episode of this series, we're going to go even deeper. We're going to talk about why even when you finally summon the courage to ask, you still don't get what you want. The hidden language of asking, what you say, how you say it, and the invisible signals you send that make people say yes before you've even finished the sentence. That episode is going to change how you communicate forever. Make sure you're subscribed, because the next door we open together is going to be the most important one yet. Most dreams don't die because they were impossible. They die because they were never clearly requested. Your dream is still alive. It's just waiting for you to ask.